In our life, we often have boundaries. Boundaries between houses, boundaries between countries, boundaries between companies, boundaries between individuals. Some are physical, some are imagined, some are emotional, mental boundaries. We have boundaries all around us. Now, how does the wild horse connect with boundaries? I find that wild horses cause people to not be effective in setting boundaries. For the main reason, the wild horse tells people the worst about themselves. So if I decide on a boundary, the first thing I'm going to think is, I'm doing something bad here. I'm doing something to other people. And in reality, when I ask people about boundaries and why you set boundaries, people typically respond in, I need to protect myself from others, I need to keep others away, I need to protect my safety, etc., etc. So it's always about doing something to somebody else. The reality is, if you think about boundaries logically, what are they supposed to do? Think about the boundary between two countries. If that boundary or border did not exist, soon there where the border should have been, you will have war. Because nobody knows where the one country starts and where the other one ends. And because of that fact, people will start having conflict that they should never have. And the same is true about boundaries in our personal lives, in our corporate lives. The more clear our boundaries are, the better our relationships can be. Because people know up until where they can go, where they shouldn't cross, etc., etc. But if you are that nice person that never sets a boundary, what you're actually doing is you are telling everyone around you that they can do whatever they want to. And therefore you have conflict that you should never even have had, because you never had that boundary. Now, some people hear me talking about boundaries and about the wild horse, and they go to the extreme and they set all their boundaries and they feel they've done their part. Remember, a boundary between two countries will only create war if it's not an agreed boundary, if it's not a communicated boundary. If I would set a boundary between me and my neighbor, and I never tell my neighbor this is the boundary, they might cross the boundary without knowing it, or they might suddenly see this wall where they don't agree a wall should be. And that would just cause more conflict. But because the wild horse tells us the worst about ourselves, we often want to do this without communicating it, because we think the other person is going to just be aggressive, we won't be able to handle it, etc., etc. And because of that, we don't communicate our boundaries. But if you haven't communicated a boundary, it doesn't exist. If it only exists in your mind, it's an unfair boundary. People need to know where your boundaries are for you to have a safe relationship with them, where they know up until this point they can go, up until this point they should not go. Now, let's take it one step further. Let's look at the people around us, our loved ones, the people at the office. How can we help them with boundaries? Because we know that the wild horse makes it difficult for them to set boundaries because they think they're doing something bad to you. I think a good solution is when you ask people what boundary they would be comfortable with. And there are various ways that you can do that. But it boils down to you having a discussion about what they would like to see, what they would like to have, what they would like not to have. And by doing this, you can make them feel more comfortable about setting boundaries, and you can have a more healthy relationship with them. I hope you have fun while setting your own boundaries in a healthy way and helping others to do the same. Have fun.